What makes this particular album such a classic? And what made this album turn Madonna from an ordinary pop singer into a music icon? Antonino Tati is the author of There's Your Quote, Mate, and also the editor of Cream magazine. He might be able to tell us why. Antonino, tell us a little bit about Madonna pre-Like a Prayer. Was she as successful as she was after that album?
I think the ground was sort of being laid down right from the beginning, really, because she was giving us glimpses of rosary beads and a certain sacrilege, I suppose. I suppose she was cheekier before Like a Prayer with the first three albums, particularly her first record. And while she was wearing these rosary beads, she was sort of putting on come-on poses in her music videos. But then I suppose Like a Prayer, then she was a bit more serious about the subject of religion, and she actually turned a little more introspective and wrote from the heart about family, about the importance of family, about trouble she had with her father, etc. So it's kind of like a graduation. She kind of grew up with Like a Prayer, I think.
Do you think people were expecting such a deeply personal album coming from her at that time?
I think they did, because it was coming out of a bad marriage with Sean Penn, which of course was 24/7 in media, around the world. They were constantly fighting. She was battling for a divorce, but it took a couple of years for that to become official. And in the interim, they were sort of forced to sort of encounter each other, and there were vases literally flying across the room. And you can sort of hear that in one of the songs on Like a Prayer called Till Death Do Us Part, in which she ironically comments on the subject of marriage, and in particular her bad marriage with Sean Penn. So in a way, coming out of those dramas and being thrust into the limelight for a year, and all that happens when one becomes a pop star overnight per se, you would want or would expect her to turn inward, and by the fourth album actually start wearing her heart more on her sleeve, yeah.
So how do you think this album compares to the rest of her catalogue?
Well, it's a lot more credible in a sense. It seems less digitised. In fact, there was a lot of live instrumentation brought into the studio where they got instruments down on first and second takes. And, you can see that she's co-written as well, or co-produced every track on the album. So she's had a hand in every one of the tracks on the album, which is a first for her. She also roped in a variety of producers. There was Stephen Bray, who she worked with a couple of albums prior, Patrick Leonard, who she'd worked with on True Blue, and also Prince, who was right up there so far as calibre and status goes, right up there with Madonna. So they worked together on 4 songs, actually. And because of that variety, it sort of has a sense of eclecticism. You've got your ballads like Spanish Eyes, you've got your funk like Act of Contrition, and then, of course, you've got your pop hits like Express Yourself and the title track.
And there was 5 singles off this album, which seems to me like an unusually high number of singles to come off one album, but they also all seem to do incredibly well. She seemed to be able to do no wrong with any of these.
Yeah, it was her pinnacle year, I think. Then again, compared to Like a Virgin, that was quite big as well. But Like a Prayer was huge because each record and each of those singles stood for something quite out there and quite pertinent. I mean, if you look at Express Yourself, it was all about female empowerment and I suppose using sexuality to a certain degree to have a certain aspect of power, but then also using your smarts as well. Look at Cherish. I suppose that was something about her desire for children at that time. And again, coming out, even though she didn't have a child with Sean Penn, it was one thing that she sort of sad she didn't have from that relationship. Oh Father, that was sort of, an ode to her dad, whom she didn't get along with terribly well until most recently, really. They're very pertinent themes and all very different to each other. So 5 singles, but not 5 repetitive sounding singles like you get today. Today, 5 tracks off a Nicki Minaj album, they all sound the damn same, you know what I mean?
Exactly. Now, this was also, I suppose, the time when music videos could cause a stir, which I suppose you could say is very different to today, because I think most people are just used to the, some would say, almost suggestive themes. Well, I think they've gone beyond suggestive in some music videos that you see. We're just something we've become desensitized to. But back then, the video for Like a Prayer actually caused quite a stir. What was causing such a stir at the time?
Well, on a superficial note, she came out as brunette-haired, which is her natural colour. But she said she did that because it took her back to her Catholic roots. And what she wanted to state with that music video was a bit of the hypocrisy of Catholicism, that A, there wasn't a lot of presence of black people and diversity in the Catholic Church, and B, she really wanted to make a comment, bizarrely enough, on the Ku Klux Klan. She had images of burning crucifixes in fields behind her while she's singing, and she kind of was, looking quite the, I suppose, what's the word for it in Italian? Zingara, a bit of a gypsy, lying down on a pew in a Catholic church. So those sorts of things are no-nos. You're not supposed to go, with a bra on in a Catholic church and lie on the pews. It's not built for that reason. And you're certainly not supposed to be criticising the church for not having enough black presence and diverse presence. And then the third layer, which is, like I said, the KKK reference, that sort of blew people's minds.
It's surprising how maybe a little bit more sheltered the world was in 1989 when you consider that caused controversy, when you see what ends up passing for music videos these days.
When you look at what people get away with, and not just women, we're talking about men being objects of desire these days, more objectified than they used to be, women being a little more in control of their sexuality, if not probably going a bit overboard and defying what Madonna tried to lay down, and that is that you could use your sexuality and you could use your sensuality, but there's also other things to combine with that, whereas what I think the next generation did was take it a little further and started, flashing beavers and whatnot unnecessarily. There was no means to an end or method to the madness, whereas at least Madonna's aim was to open the floodgates per se and to say, let's be a little more comfortable about this. You'd probably have, less diseases because people are talking about sex more because of this. And I suppose even to the point of maybe less cancer, people are less stressed about the subject of sex. So she certainly did that. If she laid one thing down in history, it would be to deconstruct the tensions of sexuality and make people feel more laid back and relaxed about the subject.
Do you have a favourite song off the album?
Well, one was written with Prince and sung with Prince. That's Love Song, which has got a very, very Prince R&B sound to it. And the other one was a closing track called Act of Contrition, which is basically starting with a little bit of like a prayer played backwards, and has Madonna sort of reciting, the act of contrition from the Bible. But she's sort of saying it in a playful way to sort of, I suppose, deconstruct the seriousness of, the word according to the Lord. And in fact, there's a bit of backmasking there too, of lyrics and of music. And when you hear backmasking, which is vinyl going backwards, you kind of think, oh, this almost sounds satanic, not religious. So in a way, you knew that there was further to come. That's why I liked Act of Contrition, the closer of the album, because it was almost hinting that, if you thought this was deconstructed, wait till you see what's next. And I like the idea of deconstructing, traditional stuff, basically.
Do you know what? I love that you picked a song that's right at the end of the album. So if people are listening tonight, we are going to play the album in full after 9 o'clock. So, Antonino, I appreciate that this evening.
Yeah, and it'll be an album worth tuning into the whole of it, like a concept album. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Back when they did proper concept albums.
Yeah, and you wanted to hear the whole record. You didn't want to just hear the hits. But these days they're making singles that are under 3 minutes long and here today, gone tomorrow. But this is one record, I suppose, that has stood the test of time, hence the reason we've been talking about it tonight.
Antonino Tati, thank you very much.
Awesome. Thanks, Paul.
That's Antonino Tati. He's the author of There's Your Quote, Mate, and the editor of Cream magazine, talking about our feature album tonight, Madonna's Like a Prayer, which will be played for you after the 9 o'clock news. That news coming your way